Taifa World here. Hope you like my new look. I have a very good thing set up for you all today. We're going to talk about civil liberties and civil rights. Now, civil liberties is secured by the Constitution. And what civil liberty is designed to do is limit the participation of government. Remember now, government is there to secure the rights of the individual. It don't mean that we need more government, we need less government. So the more government you have, the less freedom, rights the individual have. And that's where civil rights come in. Civil rights is the opposite of civil liberties. What civil rights does, it brings the government involvement into areas that was before reserved for the states. And what civil rights has been doing for the past half a century is making a uniform crime, giving a uniform punishment for certain crimes. And it has been less than usually granted for the Constitution. For example, let's take this hate crime legislation, which I've been doing some research on. Okay, let's look at this paperwork here. Federal Civil Rights Statutes, Title 18 U.S.C., Section 249, Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr., Hate Crime Prevention Act. Now, I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to summarize it. This is the hate crime bill. That's what I have written there. This is the hate crime bill. Now, what hate crime does is it gives it a specific punishment. Okay? The maximum is, we get down here, the maximum, the law provide, can you see it? If I can see it, I think you should be able to see it. The law provides funding and technical assistance to state, local, and tribal jurisdiction to help them to more effectively investigate, prosecute, and prevent hate crimes. That's what they say, but it does the opposite. It does the opposite. Let me switch back. Pardon me, I know it's kind of blurry. You didn't see it very well. But yeah, I'm gonna read it again. The law provides funding and technical assistance to state, local, and tribal jurisdictions to help them to more effectively investigate, prosecute, and prevent hate crimes. The law provides for a maximum 10-year prison term. The law provides for a maximum 10-year prison term unless death or attempts to kill results from the offense, or unless the offense includes kidnapping or attempted kidnapping, or aggravated sexual abuse or attempted aggravated sexual abuse. For offenses, listen now, for offenses not resulting in death, there is a 7-year statute of limitations. For offenses resulting in death, there is no statute of limitation. Now, before this law, the punishment was much more severe. Let's put it bluntly. You can get life for attempted murder. But now they reduced the punishment. Plus, not only that, not only did you get more sentencing, if you wasn't able to carry firearms, you had mandatory counseling, you had community service. There was some attempt to reform the individual. But under hate crimes, none of that is needed. They don't even take away your right to have a firearm. So we can see this is designed to protect a certain class. And they say, let's go to the definition. A crime committed because of an actual or perceived religious, national, or gender sexual orientation. Now, how are you going to prove what someone's intention was on killing someone? You see, this is very subjective. You cannot prove what's in somebody's mind. That's why this doesn't really make any sense. The whole point of this civil rights legislation is to protect some class, a particular class. Let's go ahead and get to the nitty-gritty. If a white kill a black, they can apply the hate crime statutes, which means he can get no more than 10 years. Don't have to give up his guns, no community service, no attempt to reform the individual. Now, we know these terms black and white are artificials. I don't like saying them, but for the purpose of getting through this lesson, we have to use those terms. Now, if a black kill a black, that's not considered hate crime, you see? Because they're the same complexion. You see? So they get the maximum sentence. So the hate crime is designed to protect a certain class. And they say help them more effectively investigate, prosecute, and prevent hate crimes. It does just the opposite. Because anytime the government becomes involved, when you get into the government jurisdiction, then you always have a limitation on your rights. Always. Now, we talked before about civil liberties, which mean less government involvement. And civil rights is getting the government more and more involved. Let's go back to that, what I was reading before, because I took copious notes. Civil rights require government to act to ensure. Civil rights require government to act to ensure equal treatment for all. This is where the government needs to prove. See, this is the point of civil rights. The government needs to prove that the person acted based on discriminating actions because of race. What? Now, how can you get in somebody's mind and prove the crime is racially motivated just because they're different colors. It's impossible to prove. Now you have the 10 Amendments of the Constitution that protect your rights, but the civil rights come in and say we don't need that. So you bypass the protected rights of the 10 Amendments. You see what I'm saying? Civil rights takes you outside of the protection of the Constitution. Very simple. And all this comes from the fruits from the 14th Amendment. Since the 14th Amendment, it is only concerned with ability to create civil rights. That's where civil rights were created. To take away from the constitutional civil liberties and making government you're making it the government responsibility. You see what I'm saying? No more do you have the protection of the Constitution called civil liberties. Now, the same government that's supposed to protect our rights is enforcing. See, you see how the switch took place? The Constitution is written to protect us. Now, civil rights legislation, the government becomes the prosecutor. And if they use the civil rights, they're using against you, not to protect you. See, remember, civil rights are protected rights because they're unalienable, meaning these are God-given rights. The government didn't give them, the government can't take them away. But civil rights try to flip the script and say, we're going to decide what is protected or not. That's not your decision. That's the decision of the people, the courts. Hope I'm clear on these points. But I have this law I wrote down. And once I got through the first page, I said, oh, I see what this is about right away. They saying something, but they're not doing. They're doing the opposite of what they're saying is to do. Let's read some more. If I can get it switched here. I don't think you want to switch. Okay. Title 18 USC, Section 245. Federally protected activities. This statute prohibits willful injury, intimidation, or interference, or attempts to do so by force or threat of force of any particular class of person because of their activities. A voter or person qualifying to vote, a participant in any benefit service privilege program activities administered by the United States. So it's easy to see the federal government is acting as the prosecutor. Federally protected activities. The Constitution is to protect us from the government. Now they flip the script and says the government need to be protected from the people. That's what it says. Now, this is my interpretation. I'm sure if you have a different view, I would love to bring you on and let you explain, because I didn't graduate from law school. I did go, but I didn't graduate for personal reasons. Part 2, prohibit willful injury, intimidation, or interference or attempt to do so by force or threat of force of any person because of race, color, religion, or national origin, or because of his or her activities. You see, they'll put themselves in position of saying, okay, we're protecting people. We're protecting people who are in a different class, race, or religion. We're doing this to protect them. That's what they say. But everything in it is to protect the government. Public schools, any student or applicant to admission to any public school or public college. Now, what is that really saying? Public school and public college are what? They're government schools and government colleges, because the government fund them, and they write the agenda for what you're going to learn. A participant in any benefit, service, privilege, program, activity provided or administered by a state or local government. Now you see, the government is taking over the state functions. You see how that big arm of the law is just getting bigger and bigger, taking more and more responsibilities as it takes away more and more your rights. The states have rights. And by the government coming in and saying they're going to protect the state, they're really taking away the state's rights. This looks just like communism to me. There's no freedom. All these things are said to protect the person, but in actuality, they are protecting the government. And the government was it 10 miles square or 50 miles square, Washington, D.C.? That's the government. Most people think it's all 50 states. No. These 50 countries, that's why they have different constitutions and different laws, because they are different entities. And what the government has been doing, increasingly since 1933 under Roosevelt, is taking away more and more of the rights of the states. That's all I see. Okay, let's look at this. I love this class, don't you? I'm learning a lot. I have studied these, but I haven't really. This is when I have a class, it gives me the opportunity to really go over it and have a presentation to really understand it better. So I'm learning as well. Title 18 USC, Section 247, Church Arson Prevention Act of 1996. You know, we had these church killings. Matter of fact, we had church bombings back in the 60s. Remember Birmingham, where these 4 little babies was killed by a bomb? Then recently you had people just come into church and shoot it up. You know, because the church people thinking, I don't know what they're thinking. They don't think security, that's for sure. So that's why I said in my other video, that the religious people seem to be living in an altered state of consciousness. Don't you know people can come in there and hurt you? They don't care about being no church. You need to have security. Okay, what this section covers? Prohibits international displacement, damage, or destruction of any religious real property because of religious, racial, or ethnic characteristics of that property, or intentional destruction by force or threat of force, or attempts to obstruct any person in the enjoyment of that person's free exercise of religious belief if the intent of the crime is motivated for reason of religious animosity. These things cannot be proven. You can't prove what someone's intent is. So what they're saying is that any crime that is committed in the church, the government is going to take over. They say prevention. You're not preventing anything. It's disguised as prevention, but what it's really doing is taking control. That means if there's a crime in a church, the state government, the city government, step aside. This is a federal issue now. This is for the federal government to take control. You have no authority here. State constitution, protections for the person. You have no protection here. Constitutional Bill of Rights, protection for the individual. We're going to protect you, says the government. But look, if you're going to protect the church, which is supposed to be separate, right? In the law, it's supposed to be a separation of church and state. Then they're making the government involved in religion. You see how these things conflict? And all that's happening is that the government is taking control of everything under the disguise of we're going to protect you. Federal explosive control statutes. You know, this happened with the Oklahoma bombing. That gave them rights to go and do the Waco. Anytime there's a report of people with firearms, move away, state government. Move away, constitutional protected rights. This is for the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, or what the ATF, drug enforcement. All these government agencies that is walking on the rights of the individual and the states. I hope y'all can see this. So under disguise of protecting the rights, they're actually taking away your rights. Because these things don't belong to the government. Churches, school. They're controlled by the communities. So by the government determining what's going to be taught in the schools, how much funds going to be spent on the schools, they're going to control everything that happens in the school. So there is no state. And where there's no state rights, the state constitution has no power. You see? Okay, I hope I did a good job going through these. With a fine-tooth comb. Yeah. And anytime you see the word protection, look out. that's that's the way they get in. They say the government is going to protect you. And some statesman said, who was it? Paraphrasing, he said the worst thing that can happen is when the government says, I'm here to help you. Look out, because you're going to lose what rights you have. All right, well, I think I did a thorough job on this. We talked about civil liberties and civil rights and how civil liberties was to limit government and protect and enforce. See, the civil liberties is constitutional protection, which is the protection for the individual from government. Let that ring. Civil rights is the government being a prosecutor of the people they're supposed to protect. Maybe that's what I was seeing in law class. I say some just don't sound right. Because it really wasn't learning anything about law. It was all about procedures. That's all lawyers know is procedures. They don't really know substantive law. All right, family, I thank you for watching. And I hope that we learned something. Peace.